Hello, I'm Councilmember Curran Price, and welcome to the new Ninth District's musical celebration honoring 25 years of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival.
Whenever I'm on Central Avenue, and particularly now that I've been at the Central Avenue Jazz Festival for over 24 years, I find myself thinking about the rich and significant cultural history that can be learned from every block and address along the avenue from Pico all the way south to Slauson Boulevard. I talk a lot about that past. I don't live in that period and I'm not stuck there, but I do appreciate the perspective of history and how it affects who we are today. Over these last 24 years, the festival has presented a number of legends who are more than just a part of the jazz picture, but who influenced the music and the acceptance of communities of color in Los Angeles in ways that will live long after. That list of legends is extraordinary. But I'm reminded of that particular Sunday at the 2014 Central Avenue Jazz Festival that included three of the most important names in the world of jazz and performance. On this particular day, in between their individual performances, I got to sit in the green room with Bill Henderson, Ernie Andrews, and Gerald Wilson. Each of them was over 80 years old and still performing and recording all over the world. Ernie Andrews has always been known as Mr. Central Avenue. At the festival, one of the most asked questions throughout the weekend has always been, when does Mr. Andrews sing? He was born in 1927 and won a talent contest at the age of 17 years old at the Lincoln Theater at 23rd and Central Avenue. That first record following that talent contest sold over 300,000 copies. It was entitled Soothe Me. Ernie only recently retired at 92 years old. Gerald Wilson was born in 1918. He came to Los Angeles in 1943 and later convinced my own father to come here too. His stellar career was also incredible. He was named the National Endowment of the Arts Jazz Master, received a commission to compose a suite of music for the Monterey Jazz Festival, and taught at both CSU Northridge and at UCLA. Bill Henderson was a jazz singer and prolific television and movie actor. He began his career in 1952 with the great Ramsey Lewis. He recorded with Nancy Wilson, Jimmy Smith, Oscar Peterson, Count Basie, and so much more. But back to that Sunday afternoon in 2014. When these three gentlemen got together between sets and started talking about back in the day, can you imagine the over 180 years of professional experiences as individuals and oftentimes as shared performances? I literally wanted to just sit on the floor. It would take that long to even begin to describe to you the depth of their legacy. But what I did see was how much they appreciated each other's talents and skills, as well as how much they respected each other for the accomplishments that would forever be their legacies. I was humbled to be there. And then I had to run back to the stage to get back to work. But I will not forget that day. I know that much of the history and legacy of greatness of jazz was shared in that room. Our featured performer is a multi-Grammy nominated artist. Admired for her groundbreaking achievements, she has amassed an impressive list of firsts, from serving as the first woman musical director for the Grammy Awards, to the first woman in 43 years to serve as head composer, musical director for the Emmy Awards, to highlight just a few of her accomplishments. The classically trained pianist is also a composer, record producer, multi-instrumentalist, international recording artist, and has 14 solo albums to her credit, fashioning her career after the legacy of her longtime friend and mentor, Quincy Jones. She not only innovated the jazz piano, but is the epitome of crossover success with her most notable single, Forget Me Nots, being sampled throughout the entire Men in Black franchise. She has definitely earned the respect she has been awarded by her peers in the music industry. She performed our inaugural festival in 1996 and was instrumental in helping bring this important event to life. Without further ado, please welcome to the stage the Jazz Classics featuring Patrice Rushen.
Thank you very much. I hear y'all clapping out there. I hear you clapping over the internet. It's all good. Thank you so much to the Central Avenue Jazz Festival for being brave enough and bold enough to try something new, try something different so that we can all have a continued opportunity to celebrate this great, great art form of jazz. We're glad to be here. I'm Patrice Rushen. This is Ernie Watts on saxophone. I hear you. This is Reggie Hamilton on bass. And Marvin Smitty Smith at the drums. First tune that we played was called Take the Coltrane, tuned by Duke Ellington. And now we're gonna do an original. This is called Shortie's Portion.
Welcome, Patrice Rushen, to the Central Avenue Jazz Festival.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here in this very important year for the festival. It's nice to be able to be
Yeah.
included in the festival. I want to thank Jose Rizzo for the invitation to be part of it. It's really cool.
That's right. Well, you know what? I must start by saying thank you for everything you are and you've done for music.
I have been just doing this because it's what I love to do. You know, it's funny because I don't really see it as I'm doing it anyway, as something that is anything other than for my own enjoyment. It's what I'm good at. Yeah. It's what I love the most. When you are working at what you love, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
But, you know, as I get older and look at the body of work and look back at it, and then I'm able to talk to people, you know, to young people, to people who were peers, and the music was a part of their coming of age as well, then I really get the power of the music itself, and I'm really grateful.
You know, you kind of kicked off the Central Avenue Jazz Festival 25 years ago.
I remember the conversations about having it and why it would be so important to, growing up in Los Angeles especially, to acknowledge that the jazz trajectory had a very important landing point, you know, at Central Avenue. And to be able to celebrate that as a part of what the music is about is to be able to keep that alive and keep that interest going. And also, you know, the world of music is not so huge. There's so many of us who are trying to understand and continue to learn about the history of the music in order to pass that information on.
Yes.
Through our activities, through what we do, through teaching, etc. So to have that piece of it be celebrated in a festival is really important.
That's right. Do you remember that show?
I do. It was an enjoyable day, and I know that years after that, as I've come back and returned to the festival, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
And bigger.
Yes. Must be special playing on Central Avenue. I never played on Central Avenue, and you know, I tell the story of my dad who, you know, when I started to become a little more aware, and I would ask him, Daddy, so tell me about it.
It was a scene. I mean, my parents told me about it. You know, they migrated here from the South.
Yeah.
And big lovers of the music, and knew about it.
Yeah.
And then when people would talk about it and to be playing, the last time I did it outside, we were right in front of what was the Dunbar.
Yeah, right.
So, and I'm looking down the street, we're on the stage, and so I'm above the people, able to see how far, man, there were thousands of people out there. And I remember when it was just a thought.
Yeah.
So it's been very good.
Did the elders tell you stories about Central Ave at all? Did you hear stories from people?
I had to ask, you know.
Yeah, I did too, right.
I had to ask. I said, well, they said that Miles Davis played here, and they said, you know, and then I met Roy Ayers. I met people that were from Los Angeles.
Yes.
I met Roy Ayers. I heard about, you know, different people that were playing in the studios that had come up in Los Angeles and had a lot of information to be able to share about, you know, how it had been, what the scene was when they were coming up. So
Right.
it's cool.
My dad was telling me, you know, about the Finley Club, Alabama, Elks Auditorium. It's like, Daddy, well, how'd you get around? He said, the Pacific car, red car got me around, you know.
The red car.
I think great musicians always have great musicians behind them or stand on the shoulders of great musicians. And there's so many greats from our city that I think are overlooked. I'd love to ask you about some of the people that you met on your way up.
Yeah, you know, before jazz was more or less institutionalized, you know, and you know, now it's around in most institutions of higher learning,
Yeah.
et cetera. But before that, you know, it really was about having innovative instruction and instructors who would find ways to introduce us to that which they felt was very key and important.
Yeah.
I went to an all-black high school. I went to Alain Leroy Locke High School
Right.
in the People's Republic of Guatemala.
I didn't tell you, you know, I went to Gompers
Did you go to Gompers?
just for a gifted kind of program.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
Which is
Locke.
right across the street.
Right across the street, right.
But Locke was a new school.
Yes.
And the teachers who came to the school to teach were ready to do some things differently. And one of the things that the music department was ready to do was to not only involve us in musical activities at the high school level, but to give us an indication of how that could be a stepping stone and a platform to learn things that could allow for us to either use music as a vocation, or to use it as a platform for other things.
Right.
So
God, it's
history
important.
was taught through the eyes of the music, social graces. We had the marching band.
Right.
We had the jazz band. We had symphonic orchestra. We had all of the different kinds of
Ethics and
things,
decorum, all
choir,
that stuff,
all
right.
kinds of stuff.
Right.
But the idea was to be in these things. Of course, you had to keep your grades up in other subjects, but this became like an important aspect of cultural development and cultural awareness. It wasn't just being in the band for the band's sake. The band had a certain swagger and pride about representing the entire neighborhood, representing, of course, the school, and later the city. So we saw the power of music and what it could do. And when you talk about mentors, Reggie Andrews, Donald Dustin, Frank Harris, they each had their own take on how they were going to allow the music to speak to us and educate us and keep us busy.
Yes.
24/7, we were busy. And in Reggie's case in particular, he focused a lot, being the youngest teacher and not that much older than us, really. It was his first years of teaching.
Right.
Focused on jazz. And he focused on jazz because of the cultural and societal aspects of it that he felt like we needed to know, so that we could be about representing something specific that could lead us in all of these different directions. He would bring musicians to us. You know, there used to be a stint where the musicians would play Tuesday through Sunday at the Lighthouse or at Concerts by the Sea or somewhere like that. And Reggie would go get them
and bring them to
us in order to talk to us, to hear us play, to inspire. So a lot of people, you know, we met a lot of people. Some of those people were living in Los Angeles as studio musicians like Ernie Watts.
That's right.
So Ernie used to come over to the school, and he used to sit there, and he used to teach Gerald Albright, Gary Bias, you know, these people that now have careers as saxophonists. And Ernie was a big influence on them, you know, helping them understand about doubling and the importance of reading and all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock came to the school. Benny Maupin came to the school. I met Lenny White. He came too. And as we would also go to the clubs as field trips.
Right, it's field trips, right. Yeah.
We would go to clubs as field trips, sometimes on a Friday night or on a weekend, and the club owners would allow for us to sit in the back,
Research and development.
drink fruit punch, and watch. Wow. So we saw Pharoah Sanders, and we saw Keith Jarrett and George Duke, Cannonball, and all these people. And suddenly the music is more than just the mysticism and the legends. Suddenly you're watching it go down, and you're understanding a lot more about the kinds of communication that's happening, the virtuosity that's going down.
Yes.
In addition to that, we had the jazz band where we were getting charts that were way over our head, but we would be trying to play these charts by Quincy Jones and Thad Jones.
Yes.
Gerald Wilson, who lived in L.A.
Yes.
You know, and some of us ended up playing in Gerald Wilson's band later.
Yeah, Central Avenue greats.
Small groups, Willie Bobo.
Willie Bobo,
These were people that allowed us to come in and not only absorb the music where they were, but allow us to come and play. And as soon as you are in the experiential mode of learning, it sticks like nothing a teacher could ever tell you.
Absolutely. I believe that too.
So it was really an important developmental time for us. Earth, Wind, and Fire used to rehearse at the school on occasion.
Oh, no.
So to see these kinds of things happening, and to have, in addition to that, the more traditional side of it represented too, going over to hear the LA Phil, going to hear recitals, and going to different churches to hear people perform.
Yeah.
Man, this was an amazing time, and it was really due to the foresight of the teachers that felt like these experiences were going to be the kinds of things that would make a dent in our psyches that wouldn't ever go away. And they were right. The next piece we're going to play for you is something that's dedicated to one of our best friends who passed away about 3 years ago now, but left such a huge footprint on all of our lives, musically, spiritually. Just a really good person and somebody who we all learned from, learned with, and has affected a lot of the music that is out there that you listen to every day. You wouldn't even know it. He played on so many big hits, from Frank Sinatra to Michael Jackson to Miles Davis to George Duke. So many people. His name, Leon Ndugu Chancler. We all knew him as Ndugu. And this is a song co-penned by Ernie Watts in his honor called Home Light. Home light. Thank you, Ernie. How y'all doing out there? You in your pajamas? You got your feet up? Hope you're enjoying the music. Again, I want to say how important it is and how special it is that we're able to do this. We have been, as you can see, socially distanced all through our rehearsal and the time that we've spent here. We've been masked until we're on camera for you. So we want you to try to do the same out there. Let's get rid of this thing. Let's do what we're supposed to do so we can get back to live music and get back to being with you and sharing this beautiful opportunity of fellowship through the music all together. Our next song is called L'Esprit de Joie. That's French for the spirit of joy.
So Glasper and Terrace sang your praises. Terrace in particular was saying, you're one of the few who manages it all in your career. Hit records, jazz musicianship at a high level, classical musicianship and composition, pedagogy, vibe, spirit. What do you say to the musician that wants to be like you, that aspires to do it all like that?
Well, I know it looks like a lot of stuff happened all at once, but it was a long time. It took a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that I would share with them is that, you set your sight on the target, and then you walk the path.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that people get more caught up in the thing that they're going for than enjoying the fact that if they have something in mind, then you have to start enjoying what's happening along the way.
Yes.
I had no idea what was in store for me in terms of the kind of career I wanted. It was so different from the way everything came together. Now, it ultimately came together, but I thought when I was about, 12, that I wanted to write for film and television. I wanted to be inside that little box, have a show, a music show, but I wanted to write for film and TV. I loved TV, and I loved all the different styles of the music. That's what was attractive.
You say film brings it all together, right?
Yeah, that's what was so attractive to me. I said, that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
But of course, along the way, I learned to play, and along the way, I was introduced to a lot of different kinds of music, and along the way, I was introduced to jazz, and each thing sort of like prepared me in a way that I had not thought about. I didn't really know the path to be a composer.
Right.
I didn't really know. And when I told my parents, especially after high school, they said, "That's nice. What would your real job be?"
Right, what's a real job?
And I couldn't tell them. They knew I loved music. So what they did do, they would say, "Okay, well, look, we'll help you with your music education, but we need to know that there's going to be something at the end of that where you can take care of yourself and have a job." Well, like I said, two upwardly mobile black people from the South, first generation Los Angeles, they were like,
bless 'em.
okay, so look,
Right.
You need to be able to work. So I went to USC because I knew I wanted to stay in Los Angeles. And I had been at SC as a part of a preparatory program for children. Been there since I was about 3.
Right.
So it felt like home, and it made things easy. So I wanted to go to school there. And I knew they had a tremendous music department, but no jazz
Right.
and no popular music at that time. So I was a music education major, classical piano minor,
Oh, no.
with the intention of doing neither.
Neither.
But the idea was, and this is what I tell my students, and to your question, the different experiences that you have all add up to something. If you allow yourself to understand that you are being put in the right place at the right time, if you are walking your truth. So what better way to learn orchestration? What better way to learn about arranging than to have to hold a violin because you might have to teach beginning strings? Mm-hmm. Or to have to play a trombone because you might have to teach beginning winds. Now, do I play trombone? No. But do I know the mechanics of how it works, how it sounds, what's involved, the positions, et cetera, et cetera? Yes. And that hands-on is a lot more, for me, seared into my ear in terms of the sound of the instrument and the mechanics of what the instrument can do characteristically, played well.
You
And when
playing
I
with
go
people.
when I go to the book and see, okay, the range is from here to here, I understand,
Right.
you know.
But also playing with people too,
Playing with
all those
people.
experiences.
Totally. Being involved in situations, and this is one of the things that I still love to this day, as being a side person.
Yeah.
That's the best seat in the house.
Best seat in the house.
To learn something from everybody that you play with, and to be able to pick up things and then become engaged in your vocabulary and involved in your vocabulary. So I would say that every experience counts if you're looking at it in that way and not looking at it as if that's not the thing I want to do. It might be the thing you have to do to get to the thing you want to do.
Beautiful. Can you share a little bit about USC and what you're doing at USC and even how you got to the program you're in?
I'm the chair of popular music at the Thornton School of Music at USC. What a journey, you know, to be in a situation where the reason that I left school was because it didn't seemingly relate to the kinds of things that I wanted or the kinds of education that musically that I wanted to do out there. I knew I wanted to be involved in the contemporary music area. So that was going to be about jazz. That was going to be about rock. That was going to be about pop. I wanted to do the studio thing. I wanted to do all of it. I wanted to play with all these greats as well. I wanted to be, as we had said in high school, we wanted to be so bad we could play with anybody. And that was the target for us. So when I was in college and I wasn't maybe getting some of that information, I had to seek that information outside of school, which I did while I was in school. So you can imagine how stoked I am that now that information is of absolute value in terms of all the kinds of things that the traditional music education model brought, but all the kinds of things that it was missing that I could experience along with my peers outside of school. Yeah. So I was involved with a program as an independent arranger to come in and do some things for a fundraiser for the Thornton School for USC. And the person who was responsible for producing that show is a guy named Chris Sampson.
Chris Sampson, right.
And we just, you know, so you just hit it off with people. I hit it off with him immediately. He says, "Can I show you something?" I said, he says, "Let me take you to lunch." We went to lunch. He reached in his pocket, and on a napkin, he had all of the ins and outs, pretty much, of how this popular music program could work. He had been involved in admissions, so he had seen the kids who didn't want to check the classical box and weren't prepared to check the jazz box,
yeah.
but who were equally as talented and as passionate about what it is that they really wanted to do and needed an organized curriculum and path.
Yeah.
And he asked me to be a consultant. I'm like, sign me up.
Heck yeah.
As we got into it and as he did get it accredited and all of the kinds of things that have to happen to get any kind of program over the goal line, as he did, his responsibilities became greater and the program started and I was first artist in residence. And then I was artist in residence along with Lamont Dozier.
You
from
said
Lamont
that, right.
Dozier
Lamont
House.
came first, right.
Lamont was first, then I was second. We were actually both artists in residence
Yeah.
at the same time.
Okay.
And then the program exploded. There was
Yep.
such a demand. And the faculty are all practitioners of this. Ndugu left the jazz faculty to become the drum instructor. Alfonso Johnson became our bass instructor. And these were musicians that had the entirety of the language to be able to, authentically offer what needed to happen from the jazz tree trunk, but who had experience with
right.
the branch that led off into certain areas of popular music.
Practitioners, right. Yes.
And the whole faculty was staffed that way.
That's awesome.
Say a whole faculty, it's not that many of us.
Right.
But the idea was that it became very successful, and then Chris moved to Vice Dean and asked me to chair that program.
That program, yeah.
Since that time, he's no longer Vice Dean, but the idea is the same in that we realized that all of the programs within Thornton and within that particular contemporary division work together because on the outside, that's what we do. So the jazz program, popular music program, music industry program, which is the business program, music production, studio guitar, and film scoring are all under one umbrella.
That's great.
And the
ecosystem
idea,
of the
there's
whole-
that
right.
communication, that networking that happens from the moment you start school. Happens because you're fraternizing with people who really want to operate somewhere within the sphere of contemporary music. So it's been a wonderful experience and an interesting full circle to be now involved at the school on a curricular level, helping to make sure that the information, as I said earlier, that was passed to me is passed on to others.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you. That's really coming from me right now, you know.
Thank you. So I belong to a Composers of Color collective. We have an opportunity to talk about this all the time. Most of the people who are involved in it, are from the ages of like 20 to 80. And that's how long there have been composers of color who have been doing things for the concert stage, but maybe haven't gotten their just due. As things are opening up and as people are realizing the contributions of black people in particular, and the different ways in which our culture has inspired and also continues to contribute. To be a part of that area is very important to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you enjoyed the pieces, and I'm hoping I'll have more opportunities to write large pieces and large works.
I'm LA born and bred, but I didn't know the heritage, the rich heritage growing up. Why is LA important to the history of music, the history of our music?
Loaded question, and not one that has a finished answer. But I think it's important because just using my own life as an example, I didn't know what I was going to do with the musical training that I had. I didn't see myself as a classical artist.
Yeah.
I didn't see that many people that looked like me who were classical artists. So I wasn't as attracted to that. I didn't have a total insight on what was possible, but through the high school experience that I had, I was exposed to all of these different kinds of musical vocations.
Yeah.
You're exposed to people who used to have to just copy music. That was their job.
Right.
You're exposed to
the
people who
industry,
are
right.
arranging. You're
Industry.
exposed to people who are players. You're
Yes.
exposed to people who go on the road. You're exposed to people who stay at home and make six figures staying home.
Staying home, right.
And studio musicians who are, some of the most versatile ever. Los Angeles really became sort of a hub for the kind of versatility that it would take to be able to do whatever you wanted to do. And those are the people that we were exposed to. That's what we saw. So for us, LA was the place that you get it together so that you can go anywhere. You get it together so that you can play with anybody.
Yeah.
You get it together and allow yourself to have the kind of vocabulary where you serve the music. You serve it.
Serve it.
And in that service, you're going to get much more than what you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I think that LA has that stamp on it to this day. That versatility is still the prize. I also think that influences other places, because as you travel and as you go different places, you pick up on certain kinds of nuances. You pick up on certain style. You pick up on certain do's and don'ts, you know, that you bring back into the fold. We've got such a rich heritage of music here and rich heritage of ethnic musics that are represented, that are easy to find and easy to hear and easy to see, and bringing all of that together. It's a great place to be able to do some of that. So, you know, we're not done.
We're not done,
by any
right?
means.
Right.
And I think that when musicians come out here, I think that they are looking for those kinds of varied experiences and tests to their craft, in addition to their creativity.
You know, what does it mean to the city, and what does it mean to our heritage, the Central Avenue Jazz Festival?
I think the Central Avenue Jazz Festival is one of the important conduits to us being able to do that look backwards. To be able to ask that question, well, what's so big about that? That's exactly the question that you want people to ask.
Yeah.
That's exactly the one you want them to ask.
Right.
Because no, it's not, you're not gonna go over there and see what was going on back in the, you know, in the 50s and the 60s. You're not gonna see it that way. It's a modern area with modern pluses and modern minuses.
Yeah.
You know?
Well said.
But to go there is to have to ask those very questions. To hear the music, to see the people, to get a sense of what has developed there by being able to ask and to be present. So I think that that's the Central Avenue Jazz Festival's should be the mantra now,
Yeah.
is to make you ask that question. Why should I be down there?
That's right.
Come down and see. Come here. Ask. And I think in so doing, a new consciousness about what's possible will be raised, because certainly the area can support, you know, great music. Certainly the area can support creativity in all its forms, all different kinds of cultural connected art is there. And that's why it becomes a destination, and it becomes a destination for you to get the answers to that very question.
Right.
I would like to remind those that are within the sound of my voice right now that we don't have the luxury ever of thinking only about ourselves without thinking about our fellow man. Our family, immediate family, and the lives that we share with our immediate family are supposed to help to teach us how to do just that same kind of care and sharing on a larger scale. We've seen what it looks like when people don't care. We're experiencing it, some of us right now, and some of us have lost people, and it's all about that care. It's all about the idea that it's never about just me. Some things are meant for just you, but most stuff is meant for the larger you. The larger you meaning the way you reach out. In whatever you do, whether it's music, whether it's cooking, whether it's teaching, whether you're a secretary or a doctor. Offer to your work your best. Offer the art in what you do to everything you do, and show you care.
Thank you, Professor Patrice Rushen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. How about it again for Ernie Watts, Marvin Smitty Smith, Reggie Hamilton, and I'm Patrice Rushen. We're not done yet, but this gives you an opportunity to be able to, when people say, who are those people? For you to be able to say, what? So that was called L'Esprit de Joie, and we're gonna move into something now that's freaky. In fact, the title is Freaky Flyiers. I don't know what you were thinking about when you wrote this. This is another Ernie Watts composition. It's so much fun to play, and we hope that you enjoy it. Freaky Flyiers. Frequie, Flyiers, Ernie Watts, Marvin Smitty Smith, Reggie Hamilton. We have time for one more. You got time for one more? You got somewhere to be? We're gonna do one more, a Thelonius Monk classic. This one is called I Mean You. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. Please continue to support Central Avenue Jazz Festival and all the other live jazz events all over the city of Los Angeles, all over the state, all over the country, all over the world. Thank you again. Peace.